I've noticed while roaming around the fake museum that there seems to be a shortage of exhibits on the moon landing. I guess that's because the fake museum only features exhibits on things that are not fake. What's up? I'm Human Subject 957 and you're watching the Fake Museum channel. You know, it's day 27 of my stay here and room service hasn't pulled my sheets back once. Per usual, I still haven't found the exit. If it were a maze, it would be easier. And if it were a labyrinth, it would be easier than that. Because mazes and labyrinths are not the same, no matter what a Spanish goat man might tell you. The difference between a maze and a labyrinth, technically, is that mazes are meant to confuse you with their varying forks and dead ends. Conversely, though they might have a lot of twists and turns, all you'll find in a labyrinth is a singular path to and from its center. And also David Bowie instructing you to slap that baby and make him pee. I'm aware that he says free, but you and I both know it sounds a lot like pee, and honestly, pee makes more sense anyway. The irony is that the first known labyrinth was actually a maze. A mythological carpenter named Daedalus constructed it to imprison the Minotaur, a presumably terrifying Greek bull man. I wonder if he knows the Spanish goat man. Anyway, if the Greek myths can't get labyrinths and mazes straight, then neither will we. I hereby steadfastly resolve to get them mixed up constantly. When I get tired of saying maze, I will say labyrinth. And when I mean labyrinth, I'll say maze. I don't care. Mazes throughout history have been built out of bricks, stone, wood, foliage, popsicle sticks, crayons. Hell, I'm naming some of this stuff off the top of my head because it's all possible. The earliest allegedly real labyrinths were first brought to the world's attention courtesy of our old friend Uncle Pliny, before he perished in the famous burial of Pompeii, that is. The ashes piled up higher and higher. The people could not move. The people could not breathe. They were trapped under the ashes. Pliny mentions a total of 4 ancient labyrinths within an encyclopedia he audaciously wrote called Naturalis Historia. The existence of only 2 of those 4 have been verified by subsequent archaeological digs, and of those 2, one of them might just be the Minotaur maze. Gnosis, the largest Bronze Age archaeological site in Crete, and I guess that's saying something, was unearthed in the late 19th century. The excavation continued well into the 20th century when bull motifs and images of mazes carved into walls were uncovered by an explorer named Arthur Evans. However, in recent years, a team of researchers has expressed skepticism that Gnosis is the site of the Minotaur's home, either suggesting Arthur Evans carved those bulls into the walls himself, or because they haven't unearthed any bull man bones. The other verified site is in Egypt, and had actually been written about 500 years before Pliny by a Greek historian named Herodotus, who had every right to author his own encyclopedia. Herodotus visited the Egyptian labyrinth and said that when compared to the labyrinth, Egyptian pyramids are totally lame. The labyrinth contained 3,000 rooms, split between 2 stories, one above ground and one below. The one below containing tombs of ancient kings and crocodiles. Apparently very astonishing, the labyrinth was mostly destroyed at some point during the 2,000 years following Herodotus' visit, but by 1888, its ruins were determined to be among those belonging to Amenemhat III. That makes him about 4,000 years old, the oldest labyrinth ever. Of the other 2 mazes Uncle Pliny wrote about, one is currently categorized as hearsay and the other a misunderstanding. And thanks to that volcano, we'll never know for sure. By the Middle Ages, labyrinthine designs started showing up in tapestries and coins and other falderall, but more notably they appeared in churches across Europe, painted on the walls and/or floors. The prevailing, though somewhat controversial, theory is that they were intended as a substitute for pilgrimage paths. See, priests would occasionally send parishioners on faraway pilgrimages as a penitence for their sins, I would assume the really bad ones. The floor labyrinth was used for misdemeanor sins, or for disease-ridden weaklings stricken with the plague of Justinian or whatever. They were instructed to scoot around the path on their knees. Not the most demeaning thing in the world. The church maze craze didn't quite catch on in England, but maybe that's because they were too busy concocting turf mazes. Turf mazes, which are actually turf labyrinths, are essentially the result of getting a little crazy with your lawnmower. They're just cut right into the grass about 6 inches down and are primarily found around the UK, though we think Uncle Pliny might have referred to them once or twice, so they may date all the way back to ancient Rome. It's really hard to say, since archaeology is hard to contemplate on something that only exists if you constantly maintain it, in this case, eccentric lawn stylings. Oddly enough, the origin of the hedge mazes is clearly ensconced in the middle of the 16th century. Unlike turf mazes, in which you would only lose your way if you had a repulsive sense of direction and were a Lilliputian, hedge mazes were much taller and by the 17th century were multicursal, complete with wrong turns and dead ends. Mostly found in England, there are plenty to be experienced in other parts of the world, and they can be quite dangerous to get lost in. especially if your dad is Jack Nicholson and he's chasing you with an axe. The North American equivalent to hedge mazes is corn mazes. England, always eager to retain its monopoly on mazes, also has a few corn mazes, but they call them maize mazes, which is ridiculous. Corn mazes developed as a way for farms to make a little extra money at the end of the growing season. Typically, they are a central part of a larger event featuring such farm attractions as hay rides and petting zoos, and are often designed to resemble cultural icons. I only mention this so that you don't confuse them with crop circles, which are designed to resemble ancient astronaut landing sites. Not unlike hedge mazes, corn mazes are also dangerous to get lost in. This year, a Massachusetts couple went into a corn maze with a 3-week-old baby and got lost. Once the sun set, they called 911, to whom they stated, "We thought this could be fun. Instead, it's a nightmare." When the police found them, it was discovered they had been 25 feet from the exit the whole time, but by then they'd already been slaughtered by the Minotaur. Finally, no discussion of mazes should be absent the acknowledgement of our friend the lab rat, with whom I sympathize wholeheartedly. If you'd like to learn more about mazes and labyrinths, look it up. And if you already know more, leave your wisdom in the comments. This is Human Subject 957, signing off.